Are you the type of person that just cannot stop working? Well, this video is for you, because we are going to cover exactly what are kind of the issues that can rise with that. But don't get me wrong, I believe that I am also a high achiever, overachiever, and I want to perform, I want to achieve a lot of things. So I'm not going to tell you to work less, but I'm going to put in light some things that you may have not considered that will impact you over the long run. Because the idea is not to produce as much as possible now. The idea is produce over the long run, to get able to get things done again and again and again and never stop. That's kind of the idea here. We want to achieve great things, we need to continue. And so that's kind of the first dilemma that you need to face as an entrepreneur, is understanding that the business game is more what is called an infinite game. Rather than a finite game. A finite game is what, so you have finite and infinite game. The main difference between those two is finite game, or like chess, for instance. They have a clear beginning, a clear end. On those type of game, you can go all in. You can just give your all and just not hold back at all. But the problem with infinite game, there is no winner. The winner is the one that is still standing at the end. That's just that. And so when you think about it that way, you are going to start thinking about your effort in a completely different way. Because if you play the game as it is a finite game, you will burn your resources out. Either money, health, anything. So the idea that the game you are playing at the moment is an infinite game has very deep consequences in the way you need to approach the way you work. Because over time, what will happen if you don't? For instance, we are going to see that, let's say, this is the level of effort that you can sustain forever. But as an overachiever like you are and like I am, this level of effort just seems like you are not even working. So, first of all, that's highly unfulfilling, because you don't have the impression that you're giving your whole. But yeah, that's just something you cannot just do. You cannot do. You want to achieve great things, so you have to do more. So what you end up doing is actually working up there, because this is where you feel comfortable. This is where you feel awesome. Okay, I'm giving my all every single day. I'm proud of what I do, and I give my all, and that's awesome. I'm proud of myself. I feel awesome. Great. But remember, this is an infinite game. So that person that is working a lot less than you can sustain it forever. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should work like that. I'm going to come just after on what you should actually do instead. But you that is working here, you need to understand that at some point you will get tired. At some point you will start making less and less good decisions. And so you will have diminishing return. And if you push it long enough, you will burn out. And this is a topic that is very important for me to share, the idea of burnout, because I went through one. And honestly, if you never experience what it is, you cannot really understand, because when you reach burnout, this is not a question of will. Throughout my life, I estimate that I am someone with a pretty strong willpower. More than anyone I know, to be honest. Then, of course, there is people that I watch through social media and so on. Maybe they have bigger willpower than I am, but In my lab, I'm probably the one that is the bigger one. But I went so hard on this. I thought to myself, you know what, I can't work that hard and I can't sustain forever, which I was wrong about. So it eventually led me to a burnout. And a burnout is a point where your body just tell you, go fuck yourself. And it doesn't matter how much you want, you cannot do anything anymore. And that's very distressing, an experience that I really don't want any of you to experience. So that's why, okay, we understand those issues. What are we doing instead in order to get better and to get better results while avoiding burnout? We don't want to be there, but we don't want to be there either. So what do we do? Okay, let me explain. And actually, I made some other video on my channel which are going in more detail on how you can actually implement those. But there is really two main ideas that come into it. The first one is going to be time boxing, and the second one so as I said, I did other videos which go in detail, so I'm just going to review that, and at the end I'm going to link the two other videos so you can actually get there and know more about it. But the idea is simple. As overachiever, we want to achieve a lot of different things. Where we can actually drift away from and doing too much is when we don't set boundaries on the work we are doing. That's why time boxing is important. The way I do it is I have a time dedicated for everything during my day, during my week. So I'm sure, first of all, that I'm working on everything, that everything is moving forward, and that I don't overstretch myself. That's really important. I set boundaries because a lot of time is also when some things that can lead to burnout is the fact that you have so much thing on your plate, and at some point you decide to go all in on one thing, then you have less energy to do the other thing, and then you start feeling overwhelmed because you have over prioritized something and not prioritize the other thing, and then you reach a position where the thing that you didn't prioritize actually come back to you like a tidal wave, and you feel overwhelmed and you cannot handle anything. So a good way to just never going to happen is just to set boundaries, and those boundaries can evolve over time. You don't have to stick to them consistently year after year. If at some point you have a priority, you say, okay, I'm going to allocate 1-2 more hours to these specific things, and I'm consciously, because that's the key, I'm consciously deciding to spend less time on other things. But you still spend time on the other thing, because sometimes this is also what can happen is when you are not making a conscious decision of doing so, you can go all in on one thing and completely disregard the others, and then this is going to come back at you as a tidal wave and overwhelm you at the worst possible time. So first, having a time for everything and everything having time for. That's the way I like to think about it. Then you have periodization, which is going to be about the effort. And this one can be a lot more complex, but the idea is simply that you manage your intensity of work as a wave. There is a moment where you work a lot more and a moment where you work a lot less. But just to give you an idea of what it is. This is the level of intensity that I told you before that is sustainable forever, that actually most people are at. But you, as an overachiever, you tend to be there. But as I told you, this is not sustainable. You will fail and you will burn out. So the idea is simple, is periodically having period where you are well below what even normal people are doing. So you work very, very cheap. But most of the time, you will be at your high level that you already do. And because you are taking break sometimes, or not to say break, I don't like the idea of break. As overachiever, we don't take breaks. But you kind of chill out a little bit, take the foot a little bit off the gas. And so because you are doing that, then you have the energy to actually go even higher than, to work even more than what you are used to actually on a daily basis. And so this when you are putting the average of all of that, you are pretty much at the same level that you are at the moment, but because you are doing it well and you are allowing yourself to recover on a periodic basis, you are, even though the average is the same as before, you can sustain it for as long as you want. And that's really the key here, to sustain the same amount of work that you do. But because work, we need to think of it of output, how much you are getting in terms of result. So by working consistently at the same level of energy, you are getting a certain amount of output. But what I'm explaining is, if you are doing that and giving yourself time to recover from the hard work you're doing, but having also time where you are putting even more work than usual, you will end up by having the same level of output, but you're doing it in a way that is sustainable over the long run. So that was kind of the idea, but in the last videos that I did, I went a lot more deeper into this idea of periodization, so you can go back and see it. But that's mainly the kind of thing. And even though I didn't want to tell it, that's the idea of work-life balance. Because on those days, on those weeks or periods that you are actually chilling a little bit on the work part, you can actually do a lot more on the personal part and achieving a lot more work-life balance. Yeah, I know as overachiever, we don't really like the idea of work-life balance, but the way I wanted to explain to you is that actually can be beneficial for your productivity over the long run. And also, I mean, if you can be productive and have a work-life balance, a work-life balance, just why not? Why not? I mean, so yeah, that's just it for today. So thank you for watching and see you next time.